welcome back to the Empowered Intuitive Academy podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tay Henderson, and with me is my beautiful co-host, Petra Costa. And you can find us at the Empowered Intuitive Academy on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. Get on it, like, share, follow, subscribe. We would appreciate the support. Today, we have a very interesting topic that I don't know how it's going to go. Hypocrisy. Are we all two-faced? And look, there's a few psychologists out there that think we might just all be two-faced inherently, and others that believe, well, it's a moral paradigm, so you either are or you aren't. And I don't know, looking into this, it was very interesting, but at the same time, I was like, fuck, must we label everything?
I got so judgmental, and I deem myself as not to be a judgy person, so I'm obviously a hypocrite. So there's no doubt
obviously
about that.
A hypocrite.
This is proven. If all I'm reading is to be believed, that I am 100% a hypocrite because I do not believe in judgment. Yet I've judged so hard a lot of the stuff that's come in front of me. Everyone I've spoken to when we've asked this question, the answer is pretty resounding. People have said, well, of course we're hypocrites. Of course we are, because we have one face that we show everybody else, and then we have one face that we show our family. And then we have one, face that we show ourselves.
Yeah.
And they're all different. Well, I don't know. Personally, I don't think that makes us a hypocrite.
No, well, I mean, look at it.
I think that makes us individuals that interact in multiple settings.
Yeah.
I think, and that's why I've got a definition here of hypocrisy, because it gets a little bit funny. But hypocrisy is the practice of pretending to be what one is not, or to believe what one does not. Okay, so having your mum face on, and acting a certain way because you're in the mum moment and you've got to project a certain thing, you're trying to do everything right in front of your kids, so you're showing them how you want people to interact. And then sometimes just darlings, you shouldn't swear, and then sometimes you drop the F-bomb 57 times in one sentence.
Yeah.
And it's a banger of a sentence, though.
Yeah. That's the one they're going to repeat.
It's going to pack some punch.
Yeah.
But, I don't think that's hypocrisy. I think,
no,
and this is where it gets a little bit. The word hypocrisy entered the English language with the meaning of the sin of pretending to virtue or goodness. Today, hypocrisy often refers to advocating behaviors that one does not practice.
Yep.
However, the term can also refer to other forms of pretense, such as engaging in pious or moral behavior out of desire for praise. Now,
that's interesting. I had not thought of that.
I had not thought of that.
No.
And I'm thinking, oh, yes, because there's so many people. And this is what it comes down to. Are you a hypocrite if you're being true to yourself? Like, for instance, if I say, I really want to, I want to be a good person. I want to be out there, and I want to be, a good person. And I do all of that. If that's because that's important.
You genuinely desire to not be an asshole. Yeah.
Yeah. But if I want to be a good person because I know that the group that I'm in are going to view me better, and they're going to view me in a better light, and that's my motivation.
That feeds very nicely into the whole two-faced thing too, because we give Geminis shit for being two-faced, but really all their personality is that they're very good at having an outer exterior that they share with people and safeguarding their inner personas, because that's not what they want to share with other people. It doesn't necessarily make them Jekyll and Hyde. And I think this is the thing. Hypocrisy is the Jekyll and Hyde. It's fun to say.
It's fun to say that. I'm married to a Gemini, so it wins a lot of arguments.
Well, I grew up in a house full of Geminis, so being the only bull in the room, quite frustrating, because I'm like, just fucking say what you mean. But they're all like, No.
Yeah, but
No.
Geminis, they're great communicators.
They are. They
They are the
are.
great communicators, and they're known for their how being adaptive.
Yes.
And
And I
so,
think the thing is they just don't put all their cards on the table.
oh yes, they play them very close
They
to their
play
chest.
them very close to their chest, and I think
Yes,
that's
unless they
more
want to
of the
have
vibe.
unless they want to have some dramatic
Yeah.
impact, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you
Yeah.
just get bombarded with it all at
Yeah.
once, and you're like going, whoa.
But it's kind of that thing too, like I guess it comes to really down, and this will feed into a little bit of theory later on about around hypocrisy, but it comes to how we judge other people too, in that, you sort of look at someone despite them being a Gemini or not, and you go, you think that they're a particular way, but then they reveal themselves to be something different. Now, one could perceive that as being hypocritical because what they're presenting is not what their true persona is. And a lot of the stuff that I read online, listening to different psychiatrists and things, is that, and psychologists, is that the only real way to not be hypocritical is to be truly authentic and be in your integrity, and being able to communicate if you do shift in a belief or a perspective, or if you do something that you wouldn't normally do, having that justification behind it, like sound reasoning behind it, that isn't by means of trying to win favor with the popular kids at the table, because like you said before, people being goody two shoes or even being assholes when they're not inherently assholes, just to fit into a niche populace.
They want to look tough.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got to
exactly.
look way.
But that would make them a hypocrite. And people around them go, we know you are so much fucking better than
soft,
that.
Man.
We know you don't hang with that crowd. What are you doing? And that stems from a need to belong, I think, finding community, needing to belong.
100%. And there's so many different reasons why we could act in a hypocritical nature, because we want to be validated, we want to be accepted, we want to fit in, and we don't necessarily want to look like a prick or an arsehole because of what we've done. So we try to put.
And I think in this day and age too, we don't want to look intolerant or biased.
Well, that is.
What was that? Excited seal clap.
That's because I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because there's today, and this goes back to our political correctness podcast that we did. Today, you might work in a business that's got a green agenda, and they're really, really pushing the green agenda.
Yeah.
And they might be some things that they're pushing that as an employee or as a person, you're just like, oh, we're getting a bit freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, that's not for me,
Yeah, but you're not allowed to express that because it is the business practice that is what you have to do.
Yeah.
And that's the company line.
Yeah.
So I don't believe you're being a hypocrite by toting the company line, as long as you do it in a way where there's a difference between just keeping your mouth shut when they're talking about that particular thing, to standing around the water cooler expressing all of the different ways you're going to green your house up when you know you're going to go home and put the fire on.
Yeah, when you know you're gonna go home and use fucking plastic knives and forks and throw out multiple single-use containers and stuff like that. But you're talking, you're fake. You're a charlatan.
Yeah. Now, so I get it that in a work environment, people got to work. They've got to feed their families. They've got to do what they've got to do. And I have this argument with my husband all of the time, not in relation to being green, but just in terms of. Sometimes I believe you have to stand up for what you believe in, and you have to have a voice, and you have to say that that's what you believe in.
Yeah.
And he says, well, you don't live in the real world. You live in your little artistic bubble where you work for yourself. You can do what you want. You can write what you want. You can X, Y, and Z.
Shots fired, Johnny.
And I work in an environment where I have to, be seen to be a certain way. And I'm like going, yeah, I get that. But just so you know, I say to him, there's certain things that I'm expected to do as an author that I'm expected to write in my books. There's certain hooks that you're supposed to get, certain manipulative techniques to get people engaged in your writing. There's certain amounts of inclusivity. What's the word? We got to be include all different.
Inclusive. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you've got to do all of that. And I'm like, I'm not going to include a character in my books just so I tick a box, because
Exactly. And that's
I
you
think that's
standing in your
wrong.
integrity in your creative process and what you believe in. And you're allowed to do that. And I think that's what it comes down to in a lot of these workplace situations. You would want to hope that the people in those workplaces would be in their integrity, in that they actually believe in what they're doing.
Yeah, but who makes the decision of what the business is doing? Like, I've often asked with different things that, even with political things, when everyone's deciding, oh, we're getting on this bandwagon now, and I'm like, they're going, who
yeah, but do you
decided that?
actually believe in that, or are you just doing it because it's trendy? Like,
Yeah,
and I think that comes
exactly.
into it a lot. Things, people just seem to jump the fence, or because it's trendy, and they're not actually like looking into what it is that they're advocating for. Because then they actually find out the truth by proxy or whatever, and they go, oh no, I don't support that. And like, you can only claim ignorance for so long. And that was actually a concept that came up in a Psychologist that I looked into, about the fact that ignorance is bliss in some cases, and it allows you to be a hypocrite because you're committing a double standard without realizing you're committing a double standard. That genuinely does happen. But I think where I sort of get my moral high horse on is that if you fucking know you're doing it, you are informed, you're doing it, you're pulling the double standard, but you're still trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, it makes you a genuine hypocrite. And it also makes you quite manipulative.
Yeah, there's lots of different words we can throw at you
Yeah,
then.
there's throw.
And you know
Yeah.
what? And I will feel so good being on my high horse while I throw them.
Yeah.
I'll make no apologies.
Yeah.
No apologies at all. One thing I was reading today, and trying to research this, I had, like I was saying, I can be really, really judgy, and I can go crazy, but I don't believe in judgment, if you know what I mean. But because my daughter always says, Mum,
yes,
you are as freaking judgy as it
I
gets.
come from a family of judgy people, like not judgy, but like judgmental people. We're quite open and inclusive and honest and things, but we do have our opinions behind closed doors. And I think people are allowed their opinions behind closed doors. Not everything needs to be expressed. You don't have to be on the same bandwagon as everybody else. But if you are asked about it, have the balls to commit to your belief and your morals,
Exactly. Now, one of the things I was reading in this article, which I actually read, and I cannot tell you how ragey I got. I got so ragey. And it was basically working on the premise that because everything is a sliding scale, whether it be the fact that I personally have a really, really strong belief system in not to tell the truth, not to not tell the truth, to tell the truth. I don't like lying. I don't like lying by omission. I don't like any of that. I really don't. Am I going to go out and someone says, ask me an opinion on something, that I'm going to go and be hurtful? Or I've also got a belief system that you should never do anything that puts fear into another person. Like, I'm really strongly of the belief system that it's your job with the people you interact with to not put fear into them. And the reason I say that is because obviously around medical stuff, sometimes, you might have you've been to the doctor and you need to get a follow-up report.
Yeah.
People ask you how you're going and blah, blah, blah. I can just say, oh, yeah, I need to get some follow-ups done. Da da da. I don't have to go into the fact that they, what are they looking into that I'm getting, and have all of these really frightening words that are put into the discussion.
Yeah.
I don't think that's lying. If someone asked me the direct question, what were they testing you for, whatever, I would be honest.
Yeah.
And yes, technically that is lying by omission, by my own rules, right? But we are thinking, thoughtful individuals.
Yes.
And this concept of absolutes that we keep throwing down people's throats, that
Yep.
there's this absolute view, and it is simple as this.
Yeah.
And this I've got it here, and I'm still getting enraged because it's talking about claiming the high ground. You say things like "don't interrupt," and as though you never interrupt, and you've just interrupted someone. I try my hardest not to interrupt, but I do it all the time. I'm aware that I do it all the time. And there's lots of reasons. One might be when you and I are talking, I've interrupted you so many times on the
You
podcast.
have, you have, you have.
I
But
really
it's
have.
all
And
it's all good because I've
look
probably done
back
the
and I
same
go,
thing.
oh my God, I didn't mean to do that. But I do it. I
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's because my conversation flow is when someone's telling me something that I'm really excited about, I want to show them that I'm really excited. So I'm like, oh yeah, I so agree with you. That's an interruption, right?
Yeah.
But if someone's talking to me and they're giving me a load of fucking bullshit
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
know is bullshit, and they
Yeah.
freaking know it's bullshit.
I'm gonna stop you right here. I got time out. I'm gonna stop you right here. I have had enough. And you
Exactly.
know what?
I fell off my chair, Dave.
Fucking time out, Petra. But it's funny you say that because I was looking at a few psychologists like online. A lot of them get on and do free tidbits on YouTube and videos and stuff, and looking into hypocrisy, but like delving into their ethos a little bit further as practitioners, because not every psychologist is going to be the same in their beliefs, in their approaches, depending on how they've been schooled and what they've been exposed to as well, their own life experience. So for some, it might just be fucking black and white, and that's what the ledger says. Others, it's like, well, we've got more of a practical approach in regards to socialization and how we are as social beings. And I was looking into like when people are constantly negative or complaining or stuff like that, and one guy was like, it's abuse, and I was like, oh, that's not fine, but understandable, because it makes people feel like shit over time if someone's just coming in and going,
like it's a really big word.
Dump, no emotional consideration. Yeah, it can be abusive and wear you down. But one of the chicks, I wish I'd gotten her name, she was talking about the fact that, actually turning around and going, I'm not interested in talking about this any further. I've got no desire to talk about it. We can talk about something else, or we might just have to pick this up another time because I'm not, I'm not vibing this. Like, that's setting a boundary. That's a healthy mental thing to do, to set a boundary in conversation, especially when you're affronted with a belief or something that is not in line with your own. Okay, Jet, interrupting. Not in line with your own, and yeah, exactly. Like, and it's not being rude, and you're not trying to argue with the person. It's just like, yeah, okay, I think I've got your point. Like, I'm gonna go and mull on that for a bit. Like, and full well in your brain, you're like, that is the biggest crock shit I've ever heard. But I'm not gonna be rude to that person. I'm not gonna treat that person like they're lesser or inferior, or that I am superior. It's just setting that boundary and just and concluding the interaction in the most peaceful, practical way possible. Like, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But there are people who interrupt, and I've had this happen throughout my life so many times.
Can we get arrows coming?
Not you. Sorry. It's not about you. Jesus.
Narcissistic bitch.
No, but like, I've had people interrupt, and they will do it just to drown you out. Because they could not give two shits or a fuck about what you've got to say. And you could have been waiting for so long to talk, so long, and and it's in context, and you're having a great, and they will just boom straight over you. Like, and they know they're doing it.
And they don't give a shit.
They do not give a shit. And I think it's the difference between being a fucking asshole and just having a few caveats here and there to be for the betterment of the social interaction, like they were saying with the sliding scale. We have to have wiggle room to grow as people,
exactly
and to change and be allowed to change, because how do people get better?
It's even that, it's the binary nature of what they're trying to make these statements of, that it's saying, yes, of course we're all hypocrites, yes, of course we're all two-faced, because, and I read in this, and I'm going to close this in a minute because this guy really, he irks me.
But that's not an excuse to maintain those binaries either. No, how people say that, go, of course we're hypocrites, and then they carry on like twats because of course we're hypocrites.
This guy basically puts forward is the fact that about being positive and not positive, that if you go, oh, I'm a really positive person, I can't stand negativity. Well, by that very statement, you're being negative. So they're like, oh, come on, guys. You know what the person is saying.
Yeah.
You are deliberately trying to break down a concept. They say here, you can't really say that if you really love justice, you're saying you really hate injustice. Therefore, you're not a positive person.
What?
Oh, what?
It's called having morals.
and this is what I'm riling up against, because it seems to me, I'm going to close that down. I've gone.
Close that shit down. You know what that makes me think of? It makes me think of the fact that the only problem in, I think it's okay to say that I'm a generally positive person, but, and then there's like a hate for negativity or whatever. I don't think that's very kind to yourself, because you're not giving yourself permission to be negative. And I think that's really coming through at the moment. Like, everyone's just all like,
really is.
Be positive, see the silver lining. It's like, mate, I just want to sit in my fucking feels for a minute. Is that all right? Like, I will get back up again, but I kind of need to just dwell here for a minute and actually have a conflab with myself and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, that is probably the biggest thing that I see in that statement, is that there's no permission to be either way,
Yeah, and I just find I find that people are trying to be so clever with their wording that they want to break down an argument with using a over the top example.
Yeah.
Like, you can't say, I love life, and then you go, oh, but you know what I mean? They're just bringing out ridiculous comparatives to prove a point. And in my mind, you're not proving shit.
You're just like, confusing everyone.
You're just not proving shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction just for a second.
Hey.
In our mate, Carl.
Oh, Carl.
Carl actually did talk about this, and it goes to what you were just saying about you just want to be in your feels for a moment.
Yeah.
He attributed hypocrisy to those who are not aware of the dark or the shadow side of their nature.
Interesting, Carl.
Carl. Every individual needs revolution, inner division, overthrow of the existing order, and renewal, but not by forcing them upon their neighbours under the hypocritical cloak of Christian love or some other sense of social responsibility, or any of the other beautiful euphemisms for unconscious urges to the personal power. And that's funny. I think I'm a little bit in love with Carl Jung.
I think we need to name a kitten after Carl, honestly. Carl, name a kitten Carl. That actually reminds me of something that I read whilst doing this, and I can't think of it now, but I will come back to it. So you keep talking about Carl.
I will, Carl, because Carl goes on to say,
I'm annoyed. I want to remember what it was.
You remember, because I'm going to say, he goes on to state, if people can be educated to see the shadow side of their nature clearly, it may be hoped that they will also learn to understand and love their fellow man better.
Oh, I remembered it. So
can I just finish Carl's last thing? Because it's only one second.
Okay.
A little less hypocrisy and a little more self-knowledge can only have good results and respects for our neighbours, for we are all too prone to transfer to our fellows the injustice and violence we inflict upon our own natures. Human has a preference for the effortless. That's going back to Tim's thing, that we often do stuff because we're lazy. And I hadn't thought of that, but a lot of our hypocrisy comes from our need to be lazy. We often say something because it's the easier option.
Yes.
It's easier because we don't want to navigate the terrain of having that freaking conversation.
Having the
with
conversation,
someone.
we would rather skirt around it or just not talk about it at all instead
I love
of.
you, Carl. Okay, you
Yeah.
go.
Okay, so it feeds into this theory I've been reading about, but a lot of it is the fact that, like you were saying about judging your fellow man, right? We judge others so harshly, and a part of the double standard is that we develop cognitive biases and things towards ourselves in comparison to others. So and we're holding other people under a microscope constantly. It's just built in us, we're observing their behaviors. We are listening to everything they're saying and watching what they're doing. And we're hardwired to pick out the discrepancies because,
it's a survival instinct.
monkey mind is going to tell us when the red flags are popping up. Now, I mean, comparatively, we're not assessing lions anymore. We're assessing people. And the red flags look a little different. And sometimes those red flags, we exaggerate them because our brain is hardwired to pull out the negative over the positive. And there's a thing called Hanlon's razor, which we talked about razors in the past in a couple of the podcasts, but
we have.
Jet's just interrupting again. Rude, baby. But there's a thing called Hanlon's razor where, psychologists are like, if you're experiencing a double standard that you're observing with someone, start with the premise that maybe their actions are not motivated by malice. And the actual saying of the Hanlon's razor is that where is it? It was like something about stupidity. Like assume that it's not out of malice or stupidity. But pretty much it's just like don't judge them before you get enough evidence to suggest that they are committing the double standard.
And this is where I know I'm a hypocrite, because I find that so very, very hard. And I know I often go to malice and stupidity.
Yeah.
They're my, honestly.
You're hardwired to seek that out before giving someone.
To go, that was a fucking stupid
Well, see, I would go the opposite. I would say that I give people the benefit of the doubt way too much when I know what they're doing is actually malicious or it has some sort of intent behind it. Yep. Like I will feel that to begin with, but then I'll go, maybe it's not that. But with the Hanlon's razor, it asks you to sort of just take a step back from it. And a lot of psychologists take a step back. Don't personally involve yourself in it, because then you're sucking yourself into the drama. This goes with the negativity and the complaining and all the sort of the shitty shit that we don't like people doing. Take a step back. Remove yourself from it, observe it, and then trend it. So like watch how the patterns of behavior over time manifest, and then you can decide what their intent is. Which is so funny because I likened this to The Mole, the TV series, which I binged on Netflix recently. I love it. I'm like, that comes up to some shady shit. Oh, you haven't watched it. Okay, I won't tell you who the mole is, but that's literally what they do. Like everyone is suspect, but you assume the best. Like it's like that looked a little bit sabotagey, but it could have also been this. And until I get enough evidence to say so, I cannot accuse them of being the mole or treat them otherwise. And even when I was watching it, I'm like, oh, that person, that person. But it wasn't. And I was like, why? Why were they being like that though? But
and this is very, very interesting that you say this, and you were talking about your cognitive biases, and because I'm the same when I watch The Mole, and I
it's great.
I like to think that I'm like You know, they did this as an example, a psychology example, when they asked people to rate themselves of where they're at, just in terms of either intellect or if they, as a being a good communicator or a good driver. I'm not going to go into the rest of it, but they were talking about that, and we always get it wrong, right? Because we don't want to see ourselves as being, you know, middle
We
of the
don't want to
road.
see ourselves as being the bad guy, and that's where we get that personal bias.
Yeah.
Like we hold ourselves in a higher esteem than other people.
I think I'm pretty good. You know, I think, you know, I'm pretty good at reading people. You know, my intuition's, you know, pretty great. I watch them all, and I'm doing the same thing. And then I'm there, and I literally my brain gets locked in a chasing its tail in a circle of reference.
Yeah.
Because I'm like going, could they be just doing it because of this, or could it be that? Could it be
Yeah.
that? And how would I play it if I was the mole? I have not got a strategic brain at all. I would think I'm the kind of person.
I'm pretty good at tracking people over time, but first off impressions, no. Like I've got to get to know someone and see them in action before I can make a judgment. Whereas Tim, fuck man, he can look at someone and have one conversation and be like, they're bad news.
Yeah, no,
I reckon. You go, oh, you sure? He's like, yeah, they're fucked. Stay away from them, you know? And I'm like, that is so uncanny. Like, holy, how do you do it?
I reckon I'm like that. But the problem I have is, though, that I think, because I know this about myself, right? So this has been a bit of my self-awareness coming out.
I love that. Let's praise that. This is what it's about. Self-awareness.
Yes. I know. I like to think, with the way my brain works, because it's very logical, it's very linear, that I would be a strategic freaking genius. But I know that I'm not. I cannot win a chess game against my son ever. We could be playing beer pong, and he's like 25 beers, you know, schooners in, and I still can't beat him.
Still smash.
I still can't do it. And it's just not how my brain works. So when I'm watching the mole, I'm like going, oh, and I literally can't. And my daughter even goes to me, that makes no fucking sense. What you've just, what are you saying? And I'm like, I cannot, my brain doesn't work that way. Well, I want to talk about the confirmational bias. So a notable example of confirmational bias is that people search for, favor, interpret, and recall information in a way that confirms their pre-existing beliefs.
Yes.
And this bias can lead to a...
That was interesting. I was like, okay.
And it's like, and I get this, and I do this. I do a lot of these things, but you know, we all do. I do recognize sometimes when I'm doing it.
Because we don't want to assume that our reality is wrong, right?
Wrong.
You know?
And if someone has done something to piss me off, and they've done it once, they've done it twice, they've done it 3 times, I can assure you, when we go out the next time, I'm looking for the 4th time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm waiting for you to fuck up in that way again, right?
Yeah.
But what it also means is I'm in being so intent on being confirmed that my view is correct.
Yeah.
I'm not taking in the data of all of the things they're doing right.
Yes. And that's the funny thing about that, because you know on that 4th time you're looking for the shit and they're not going to deliver. Like, it's not going to happen. That's just how the cookie crumbles. And you're like, but they are a piece of shit.
Well, I always say, one of my famous things that I say all the time is, if you look for shit, you'll find it.
Yeah,
because that's what you're looking for, which is, in my way of interpreting the confirmational bias. They also talk about the fact we've got blind spots in our cognitive bias towards ourselves.
Yeah.
And it basically, because we know why we're doing what we're doing, or I hope we do. I hope we know why we're doing it. Like, there are some instances where later we might self-reflect and we might go, fuck, why did I say that? Why was I so harsh on that? And I suppose what we've got to say is that if you're having those moments, you have to go back and have a bit of a think if it's coming out of left field for you. But you don't know what the other person's thinking and why they're doing it. You're just making these assumptions.
And again, coming back full circle, the way we judge others to be, and when that behavior does not match those assessments, we get caught off guard. And it's like we don't have the capacity to account for that when that happens. It's like, oh, error.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we'll often do, and this is a part of the blind spot philosophy, is that we have a tendency to think that other people are going to act the same way a person who's similar to that is going to act. So if we've had dealings with people of a certain kind of personality type, and then we bump into another person with a similar kind of personality type or background or whatever the hell it is, we will have this double standard going on, not deliberately, but just in our head, because we are little microcomputers, we're taking in data. It would make logical sense if I've met, 5 really bubbly people and they've all been almost like little butterflies going from one conversation to another, because that's what that bubbly people are like. It makes sense that I would assume that the next person I come across that's like that is going to act in the same manner.
And that feeds into stereotypes, doesn't it? Like you assume, you judge the book by its cover, and then you read the interior and it's like doesn't match up. But it's funny that you bring that up, because there was also a thing with double standards called false equivalencies. So judging something or someone incorrectly as equivalent to another thing, which leads to a double standard. And when I read that, I thought about kids. I thought about how when kids are in the playground or they're in school or whatever, or even with parenting, right? Because a lot of the double standard is either in favoritism or discrimination. So, and kids, you see it as, they see it as favoritism. They go, oh, little Johnny over there is getting more support from the teacher than everybody else. Why is he so special? What is it about him? Because they're assuming they're not different for them. But little do they know, little Johnny probably has autism or a learning disorder or something, and he needs that extra help and praise to get him through. It's not that you're not worthy of it. As in the other kids don't get or need that. It's just he might need a bit more of a helping hand, and so he gets more support and more praise because it's harder for him, and that way they're not equal. But so that false equivalencies, I was just like, straight away kids, but I think that gets carried on into our adulthood as well. I mean, we judge other people, go, why should they get benefits over us or whatever? We do more work and things like that. Well, no, their circumstances are drastically different to yours. Like, you are not equal in that pedestal, So
and I think the false equivalency argument would go straight back to what we were talking about in terms of the reason for lying. Just to throw all lies in the same bucket, that go, oh, the lies in, what I've heard. I'm not going back to religious people, but I heard that, you Jesus cries every time someone lies or something like that. And and I'm like, there is a real level of false equivalency, saying, well, because you lied about the fact that X, whether my bum looked big in that outfit, whether you lied about that is not the same about lying about.
Do you know a funny story? So I bought a packet of Nerds.
Are you saying my bum looks big in this tape?
No, I can't even see your butt. How would I know? I can't judge. I bought a packet of Nerds recently from the server. I'm like, fuck, I haven't had Nerds in like years. I'm gonna buy a packet and just fucking.
My kids love them.
Mung on it. I love the Nerd ropes, but they just had the Nerds. So I was like, yeah, cool. I'm having an experience. Erica walks into the kitchen and she's all like, what are you eating? And I told her it was boogers, so she wouldn't want any, and she's like, yuck, and walks off. And then I just kept eating my Nerds. But I'm like, does that make me a liar, a sinner, a hypocrite? No, it makes me a mother who just wanted to not fucking share everything for once. I just wanted my Nerds to myself. But, in the extremes, and I think you bring up a good point, because a lot of, spiritual, religious, political, whatever, it's that extremes. It's that black and white. It's that you fucking lied and you did it once, and I don't care why or how or when or whatever was around that. You're a dick now. You are the biggest hypocrite that ever walked the earth because you did it once. And it's like,
exactly, and that's exactly where the false equivalency argument comes in.
Intense, draining experience of life you're
getting
having,
something
if
wrong
that's your
once,
outlook. Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you've gotten everything wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't invalidate an argument whether you might have got one point. And the people that use this, and that's why I think with all of this, people are using words as weapons rather than for what they were intended. Well, I'm going to go off completely in a different direction.
Okay.
Just for 2 seconds, really quick, because I have my little bit of Carl Jung stuff here.
Yes.
What came up every time I was looking this up was Machiavellianism. I know.
What is that, pray tell?
Where the hell? And I always say, I have it as part of my vocabulary when I'm just talking to people, and I go, oh, that was very Machiavellian. I say it all of the time. And I didn't realize that my son and my daughter had no fucking idea of what I was talking about. Now, for something, Niccolo Machiavelli, he was a person that worked. He was in Italy, and he was very influential at the time in terms of the political systems and all of that kind of stuff. And his name has been synonymous now, that if it's that very Machiavellian, it's very manipulative, and you're doing things just for your own ends. So you literally will say and do
interesting.
Yes, you'll literally say and do anything for your own ends. Now, basically, Niccolo noted that the mass of mankind accepts that what seems as what it is are often touched more nearly by appearances than by realities. Of course, this was written hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But basically, we don't care about the truth. We care about what we believe to be the truth.
How it looks. Yeah.
And he goes, natural selection works by the principle of survival of the fittest. And several researchers have shown that the humans involved to play the game the Machiavellian way get further, because they don't care about, they just want what's best for them. And they will do whatever they need to say and all this kind of stuff. What I found interesting about this was that this dude, when he wrote his books, he was basically talking about the fact that when he studied society and all the political systems and the political regimes that had been proceeding, that these regimes that worked with this thing of tell the people what they want, but then do what you want in the background.
But then do what,
what you want. Those ones were more successful in getting shit done. Because they didn't. And that was what he said. And now he's become synonymous with this really negative connotation, to the point where they've got a personality profile that you can actually get your max score. And you can actually get a score of how much in your own, and it's counted as a trait of the dark triad in psychology.
Oh my God.
I know. So you got to look this up. But what I found that was really, really interesting, because he basically said, all politics or all religion or all things that rule over others involve deception, treachery, and crime.
Yes.
And he said, and to think that they do any different, you just don't know what's going on. You're being naive.
You're being ignorant. Yeah.
So I find it really funny. So that for him speaking his truth, and he was right. We all know what he's saying is right.
Yeah.
He was deemed as being that he's actually been coined. I don't know if I cut it there, but he was the voice of evil. He wrote these books almost like how-to books based on what he'd seen. Not like it was a how-to book in terms of this is what's been successful through time. But now his name has been synonymous with evil doings, and he was said to be the voice.
I love how he's the evil one, because he called out the fucking uppers on their shit. Yeah. And you know what? That's the number one thing people recommend in the psychology field to do when you come across hypocrites and shit. Just fucking call them out. Because it gives them, it diminishes their power and puts them on the spot, and it makes them have to reevaluate, moralize, and justify why they've chosen to uphold that double standard.
I just find
that's fascinating. Yeah,
it is fascinating, because one, I want to do the Mac quiz.
Right, me too.
I want to know where I rate
Yep.
on Machiavellian traits.
Yes.
Right? I really want to know. I don't think I'm about deception and treachery, but I do think I've got a fair level of manipulation in my way of doing things. Just
Oh,
just a little bit.
yeah.
But I found that was really interesting. Now, I reckon the thing we finish off on, Tay, you got us to watch this amazing video.
Yes, yes. I come across a fella, and his name was Robert Kurzban, psychologist. I think from the University of Pennsylvania.
I think, yeah.
A while back. And he wrote a book called Why Everyone Else is a Hypocrite. And he pretty much studied like the human brain and how that works and how that relays into being a hypocrite. So he says that and I watched a TAM talk, which is on YouTube. I can link it into the description if Petra reminds me. But he says human nature is intrinsically conflicted, causes us to maintain contradictions in our own heads or behaviors. And he has this quote written by Walt Whitman. He starts his presentation off. He goes, "Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes." And I really love that because, as you know, Robert goes into, it explains that we are multifaceted beings. And the way he explains this is that in our head, it's kind of like smartphone, right? If you think about our brain like a smartphone, there's different apps, different parts for different processes, and they're all got their one agenda, but they're working beside each other, but not necessarily together. Like they're not really collaborating. But every now and then,
necessarily to the same end.
No, and not to the same end. So you might have a interaction with somebody, and and this is all a part of evolution. Like our brain adapts to our circumstances, and over time wires those neural pathways to gear towards a certain purpose or an end or agenda. So the one way he puts it is that and he also said like sometimes it's better with false beliefs and ignorance, having that at the helm really controls how we judge other people. And it talks again about those biases of we don't necessarily apply those to ourselves, because it's not a nice feeling to think that we're the hypocrites in the situation. Hence why his book was like, Why Everyone Else is a Hypocrite, not why everyone, because that would include you, the reader. But pretty much just like, and then there's that head in the sand mentality. Like if I don't see it, I don't acknowledge it, it doesn't exist, when actual fact it does. But there's benefits to not being informed in some situations, because you can act in your integrity. You genuinely do not know about a situation, a person, a circumstance. Therefore, you can't comment. And he likened that to a member of the White House, the press secretary. He's like, I do my job best when I don't fucking know about anything.
Yes.
When I am in the least aware. And that's because he can't comment on it. He does not have to. He's not lying when he says, I've got no idea what you're talking about, because he doesn't. He hasn't been informed, and he keeps it that way so that he can maintain his integrity. In that way, that doesn't make him a hypocrite. But
it was interesting that he put forward the premise that our brain has built these little work engines in its head of how it does it from an evolutionary standpoint.
Yeah.
Because to protect ourselves in lots of different ways.
Yeah. And so, the points that he sort of makes towards the end, which ties it all together, is that your moralistic modules or your apps cause condemnation of X. So it's like a behavior or a person or whatever. While the modules causing oh God, I hate when I can't read my writing. But there's the other modules doing X, so where you're doing it, cause hypocrisy. And then the hypocrisy is judged by others. So you've got like this sort of Ouroboros effect within human interaction and nature. Like we judge others more harshly than we judge ourselves. And in that way, we contradict ourselves. And he talks about having beliefs that, you know, we can have multiple beliefs or perspectives or opinions that are alongside each other within these modules in our brains that don't necessarily agree, or you know, they clash. They might clash when they meet, and we can hold these at the same time, much like the apps on a phone. You know, one rings, one texts. They don't necessarily do the same thing at the same time. And our brains sometimes have a hard time linking those things together. It would rather treat them as secular, and that's when we get this clash of hypocrisy happening, because you can have the belief that you don't like liars, but then you do it, you know, and it's usually to either take advantage of an opportunity, even when it means engaging in activities which would be considered as wrong or immoral. And yeah, in that way, we contradict ourselves. So I
found it was actually very fascinating.
It was fascinating.
Fascinating watching it, because he basically was stating that if you view yourself as a singular, you're doing yourself a disservice in understanding how your brain works.
Yes.
That there is no singular.
Yeah.
There is multiple.
Yeah.
And that there's all these different things. And that it was very similar to another psychologist I read, which they basically were talking about two systems. And that we have the system of intuitive processing.
Yeah.
And our intuitive processing is very fast, it's automatic, and it's effortless.
Yeah.
So we basically, based on all of the different things that we've learned and we've seen, and different situations, what we've engaged in, and all of this kind of stuff, we have developed a system that will intuitively process, that will take on information and basically give us a live feed update.
Yeah.
And they gave an example of, for instance, you're in a group and you've told a joke.
Yep.
And you're waiting for the person's response. You're intuitively gauging the person's. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Because always when I tell a joke, no one gets it. It's always got a Machiavellian reference, and everyone is like,
there's time. I'm just thinking about the times where, you know, I've cracked a joke and it's a bit too dark for the audience. It's like, and it's happened, and they go, oh, "You're a horrible person." I'm like,
person.
Am I, or am I just, you know, like? And I like to think I'm quite a considerate, sensitive person. So for me to go to that, but I also use humor to cope, you know.
Exactly.
So I'm like blending that together a little bit.
Blend all that shit together.
People don't like spice, apparently. So get out of the kitchen.
The thing is, Dave, when you're doing that, your intuitive processing system is gauging people's responses. Well, sometimes I've seen some people that tell jokes and they're kind of freaking oblivious. Like, you know, when you say to people, read the fucking room.
Yes,
did you not get that went down like a clanger? Did you not work that out? So obviously some people's intuitive processing isn't up to speed, or it's having a
sometimes it has a faulty a fault moment.
It's being upgraded. So it's offline for a little
bit. Yeah.
But that would be our intuitive processing system that's doing that. But then we have our conscious reasoning system. So at that time when we're realizing the joke is a clanger, we have then our cognitive reasoning might come in and be saying, oh, why did that not go? And then you start realizing you're running through all of the possible scenarios as to why that joke didn't hit. And you're doing that. Now, that's a much slower system. It's a controlled system.
I can literally see it in live motion, in live action.
And you can see it.
The look on the face being like,
you can see me like,
but that was funny. Like, are you a bit shallow? Are you a bit, are you a bit unintelligent?
but the most important thing about this, Tay, is that the cognitive reasoning side, the conscious reasoning side, takes work.
Yeah.
And I think this comes back a lot of it, that hypocrisy can often stem from being fucking lazy.
Yeah.
You're just fucking lazy.
Yeah.
And I'll often, I get my knickers in a twist about things like, Johnny, it's always Johnny. Poor Johnny.
Poor Johnny, you've had a bit of a call out today.
He cops it, and this is one where I know it's not fair, because he'll use a certain wording to say something to someone, and I'll go, did you say that just because it was the easiest option for you?
Yeah,
or did you say it because you consciously thought about
that was the best way to go about it?
And in my mind, I'm more worried about the why than the actual. He's already said that whatever he said to that person, and it's the right thing to say, and everyone else has moved on.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going,
you're going.
You just did that because you didn't want it.
Probably could have handled that a little bit better, you know. Yeah, I will admit I do fall into those pit traps. Like,
yeah. So I just think I think when it comes down to hypocrisy, that we often do things. I think if we're doing it because we're just fucking lazy and can't be bothered to put the work in, then it's a hypocritical action.
Yeah.
Only if we do not align with the fact that the easiest option is the best option.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's got to go against your own moral belief
system.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, it's good. But then, so in that sense, someone who is like inherently, you know, geared to the malign or whatever, if they're being a hypocrite, they're not really being a hypocrite. They're just being a fucking pretender.
No, they're being true to themselves.
They're being true to themselves. They're deceiving you to think that they're something else. And I don't think that is necessarily a hypocrite, you know.
No, they're not a hypocrite. They're just a manipulative arsehole.
Yes, exactly. So it's a real grey area, I think, because we all have the capacity to be hypocrites, and we probably do it on the daily. But then again, we're an evolving psyche, you know, like 1 minute something's going to land and you go, oh yeah, that sounds pretty right, and then you mull it over for a bit and you talk about it for a bit, and then you realize, oh, maybe that's not what I thought it was, you know. Yeah.
And I think it's really some of the things we've brought up. If we look at, so Carl Jung tells us that it's our own shadow that can be impacting our level of hypocrisy. Other people have told us that it's our willingness to belong.
And Robert Kurzban says that it's our inherent nature to seek out opportunity.
So I think if we go into it with the light of having some of this light shone on it, that we can look at it a bit differently, to not only when we're judging other people, but when we're judging ourselves. That if we know that this cognitive bias is in play, that we're more likely to have, hear something that confirms what we're saying than something that negates it. If we know all of these things, we might be able to be a little bit more reflective. And have a bit of introspection.
And I think that's what it comes down to: being reflective, being introspective, and having like a bit of self-awareness of why, you know, like I was saying earlier, if you are able to justify your change in perception or behavior or whatever, and it's sound and it's not just, you know, because I fucking can, because I'm I have the seat of power in this house and I can do what I want at a whim when it suits me, you know. But I'm going to hold you to a standard that I myself will not maintain. And I think that for a lot of people, that is legit definition of hypocrisy. You know what's funny? Just a little fun fact before we nod off. I was looking up bigotry because I felt like that was a word that was sort of synonymous with hypocrisy, but it kind of isn't at the same time. It's sort of like related to. But bigot was like, comes from a French word, where there was a Duke of Normandy, King Rollo, who was legit a Viking, a Norwegian. And people all know this from like Vikings, but this is like the actual history of it. So he was told by like the Emperor of France to kiss his feet, and Duke Rollo refused. And like the Emperor of France called him a bigot, which was code for religious hypocrite. So pretending to be of one faith, but then, you know, not adhering to the traditions because of another. So I just thought that was fascinating. I'm like, that's very interesting.
I think it's all fascinating. And the one thing that I keep coming back to, because that even though I've closed it down, I'm still enraged by this concept that not all lies are the same.
Fuming.
I'm still fuming because I really, really personally try to make every effort not to lie. right? And to go a better way about it. But I can assure you, if I was in a situation where my life was in danger, or
you would fucking do it tenfold.
I would lie right there and not think anything about it. So,
and I think that's the situation, you know, like a lot of the times we're pushed into extreme corners where our morals are gonna be judged, and it's, you know, and it's life or death. You know, we see it in movies all the time. Like, do you leave that person behind, or do you fucking run for it because you know they're probably doomed anyway? Like, what do you prioritize in that moment? And I'm literally thinking of like Game of Thrones when they're all like, bend the knee, and they've got a dragon looming over them. And instead of bending the knee, they're like, we will not bend the knee. And then she just burns them. Like, bro, you probably should have just bent the knee. Just fucking do it. You know, like, it's against your morals. You can defend them later.
Exactly.
You know, but at least you'll be alive to do it. So
I think the concept that there isn't sliding scales and they're not there for a reason is just absurd. Of course, our life is full of it. There's yes, there is. And there just is, and anyone who thinks differently is I don't know how to speak to you if you don't realize that. I really don't know how to.
I can't cope.
I can't cope. My brain just can't do it, and that's where I'm a very black and white kind of person, and I understand that contextually black and white makes grey. I have
you're a black and white person that doesn't believe in black and white concepts.
Exactly, because black and white.
No, I would just say you're a fucking grey Jedi.
So to answer the question, do we all have two faces? The answer is fuck yeah.
Absolutely.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Honor that inner Gemini. See where it is in your chart, because that's probably where it's going to exhibit the most.
Tay, why is it a great time for us to be talking about this particular?
Yes, so I forgot about this, but so I've been doing my little rose priestessy path, and we've been working with Medusa in that, which I've fucking loved. Like, love the energy, love the vibe, love the energy. But she is associated with the Algol star, or the demon star, as some people might know it, which sits in the constellation of Perseus at the head. And it's in play in astrology at the moment. I can't remember the exact positions and movements and things, but there's some hectic ass energy happening with like Mars and Pluto, and Venus is, you know, ascending and all this shit. But Algol is in play, and Medusa, her energy is pretty much like holding a mirror up to yourself and seeing where you are being untrue to yourself and your authenticity, and where you're petrifying yourself at the same time, like where you're stopping yourself from evolving.
Myself all the time.
Mate, like in our meditation with her, like the first one, it was just like, it was very intense, because she's just all like, you are, you know, you're afraid of your own venom when you shouldn't be. Like, your venom is not the problem, and you're like, you envenomate yourself in doing that, because, you know, obviously the snakes and things like that, like you're allowing yourself to be petrified and relinquishing your power in that, when you should be claiming it. And then the second meditation, I was just all like, so stone smashed, give me the mirror. You know, like, give me the mirror. I will look at this.
I'm ready for it now.
I'm ready for it. Yeah, and that is very much the energy of the Algol star in play.
Yes, and I think if anyone gets anything from this podcast, is the fact that it's acceptable for us all to have a level of hypocrite within us, because circumstances change and they may make us.
Yeah.
But that doesn't give us any free fucking passes.
We should be investing. We should be investing in that self-awareness, because then we can walk in integrity.
A lot of these, you know, psychology websites that we've gone on has basically just given us a get out of jail free card, and I'm like, no, it's called accountability. And we all need to be.
That is something that I literally wrote a note and I underlined it. Accountability. Because that's the thing. When we get caught in a lie, or caught in, you know, mishappening or a mistake or whatever, a lot of people, that's when they will try and perpetuate the lie or place blame, because they do not want to take accountability.
I
the first person to admit when I have fucked up. Even if I haven't fucked up, for the sake of peace. There are a lot of people who will fucking argue to the grave. Yep.
And I must admit, I found a lot of this psychology stuff just a little bit soft in terms of, there's confirmational bias and cognitive bias, and we've got a tendency to have a blind spot, and we've got this. No, grow the fuck up. Have a look at yourself.
That
voice. Yeah, anyway, so that's what I'm going to leave with. I'm going to say, go with bloody Carl Jung, examine your shadow self, and find out the reasons. If there's an acceptable environmental factor that made you go against what you believe. First of all, you know what? Everyone should take some time to work out what it is they fucking believe. Because I don't think people even know how to
actually write down your morals.
What is it?
What is it that you can't stand, or what is it that you hold sacred?
Deal breakers?
Literally, because a lot of people don't know until it hit the moment, and that's something else too. Like, I mean, we're going a bit over time, but fuck it, whatever. We're here now. We've crossed that threshold of trying to be on time. But it's like, they don't know what their morals are. Like, a lot of people like to go, I would do this, like, face of the hypothetical, they would go, I would do this. And it's, either the moral high ground, or some people, bless them, brave enough, no, fucking I would run, But again, in their integrity, we know that that's what they're going to do. Therefore, they're not reliable. Therefore, thank you for the heads up. But other people go, I would do this. And it's like, well, you don't know what you would do until you're in the situation. You can have an idea. You can have an estimation, of what you might do, a prediction. But until you are in that actual situation yourself, face to face with it, there's a very likely chance that you will not remember that.
You will not remember that.
You will cut and you will react. We are hardwired to react with our monkey minds. So, and I think there needs to be a little bit of grace in that, and not just being so high and might. Like, I think it's a good thing to be like, I don't know what I would do. Like, I do not know what I would do.
Yeah, I've never been put in that position. I don't know. I would like to think I would act this way. I would like to think I would.
Yeah. But self-inquiry, I think that's really the dux of it. Yeah. And yes, we can be hypocritical sometimes, as long as we realize and sort of take a minute to actually assess that and see where that's coming from and why we're doing it,
If it comes from circumstance and environment, then all okay.
Yeah.
If it comes from the fact of self-interest, laziness, and just a want to manipulate a situation, then give yourself an uppercut. Come back better and stronger.
An uppercut. Now, Petra, we've been.
I've got no tolerance for this kind of stuff. I've got no tolerance for self-deception, which means I'm probably the person who's lying to myself the most.
Look, if they want to be deceptive, that's on them.
Do you know
just
what?
Don't fucking come near me with that, because I will.
I don't care about people wanting to lie. I am frightened by the concept that people lie to themselves. And that's where the hypocrisy
they believe their own bullshit.
They believe their bullshit.
Yes.
And I'm actually like, I'll look at people sometimes. The amount of times where it comes in my head where I go,
you genuinely think that, and that comes into like blind faith and things like that. Like, that's a whole other kettle of fish we're gonna have to tap into at some time. But
if people knew what was going in my brain, sometimes I'm like going, surely, because you know what frightens me the most about it, Tay? If they are actually believing their own bullshit, like they have created a new version of reality, and they've believed that to be like a historical fact. Like, I hate it when people tell me something. I know we've all got our own perception, and if everyone looks at the same thing, we all see it differently. I fucking get it, but there's certain things that were locked in stone. There's certain things that happened and didn't happen. Timelines don't change. Whereas people will put carts before horses and all of these. They will rejig reality.
Yes.
To give themselves.
And that's that confirmation bias coming into it.
Hate it.
Yeah.
Like, I just hate it. But what frightens me about this, right? If people are doing that, And they really do believe that they reacted because you did this first, when in reality, it was a completely different sequence of events.
Yeah.
How do I know I'm not doing that myself? How do I know that what I believe to be truth in my head is not a series of lies that I've fabricated for my own self-interest? That's what I wake up in a cold sweat
apparently,
about.
according to Robert Kurzban, that's exactly what everyone's doing.
I can't. That would kill me. My brain would break.
Oh.
I know that I have my own perceptions. That's fine. I'm happy to accept that.
Yeah.
But if I actually find that I'm rewiring fact, that I'm rewriting fact in my brain to suit my own ends, then all those different modules are about to have they're going to battle right now. Someone's getting taken
They're getting a reboot. They're getting a
Someone's
reboot.
Getting some module.
You just have to go to the Akashic Records and just fact check that shit. Did this actually happen? Tell me, Lords of the Records.
Oh my goodness, that would be perfect, because I would love to say, let's just go to the videotape.
Yeah. Let's go and check the evidence, and we're just there with like donuts and coffee.
Right in the middle of an argument with someone, and I go, fuck, I wish that we could go back to the videotape. Fuck, I wish.
Literally. And you're like,
I know I'm right on this.
You replay it in your head, like, is that actually how it went down, you know? We could fall down the rabbit hole with this shit. There's so much just how our brains work.
I haven't looked up what we're talking about next week.
Oh, get on it.
I'm on it. So you just fill in some space, some time here, Tay, while I quickly find out what the dickens we're talking about. All right,
let's go to the story about a cat. What is it?
It's a beautiful one.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, we got a really good one.
We need one of those.
We've got a beautiful one. We're talking about, and it's another one of our loved pop culture. When we look at pop culture, and we're talking about mythological creatures.
Oh, yeah.
How many of our mythological creatures have we twisted and bastardized? And Medusa's going to be she's going to be there.
She is going to be there, front and center, because she's going to be
fucking kicking everybody's ass and saying, "You think I'm this?
You think I'm this? Well, I got his head in my hands now, so fuck y'all, right off. Hail Medusa."
This is going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So hopefully what we'll do is a little bit of how creatures have been, in our Harry Potters and our Game of Thrones, and how they all, come in, and where the history of them,
where they come from, where they're inspired from. It's going to be fucking brilliant.
Alrighty. Werewolf.
Alrighty. Let's talk about a cat.
Talk about a cat that we may or may not name their young
Carl. At least one kitten. One of the 7 is going to be named Carl.
I love Carl the cat.
Yeah, Carl the cat. So remember, folks, curiosity may have killed a few cats because they had some shifty beliefs and, got caught out in the lie, and may or may not have suffered some corporal punishment for that shit, depending on the situation. Peasants be angry, but
we just whipped the cat.
We just whipped the cat. Cat of 9 tails. I will not lie. And that's how we're going to tell which one's Carl, because he's got the flogging scars.
I was a little fucker.
Oh, little fucker. But there's no growth in ignorant bliss unless you're the Secretary of Press in the fucking White House.
That's Nirvana.
Oh, alrighty.
Okay.
We will see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye.